From what has been shown above, it can be further proved that in God there is no other essence or quiddity than his own being. For it has been shown that there is something above which necessarily exists in itself, which is God. This must be the case, therefore, if there is something that is not what it is, or it is inconsistent with that quid, or contrary to that quid, just as whiteness exists by itself. If, in the first way, it does not agree with that quiddity that it is necessary in itself, just as whiteness does not exist in itself. But if in the second way, it must be that either being of this kind depends on the essence, or both from another cause, or essence from being. The first two are against the reason of that which is in itself necessary, because if it depends on another, it is no longer necessary. From the third fact, it follows that that quiddity comes accidentally to a thing which in itself necessarily exists, because everything that follows the being of a thing is accidental to it, and so it will not be his quid pro quo. Therefore God has no essence which is not his being. But against this, it may be said that that being does not absolutely depend on that essence, so that it would not be at all unless it were, but it depends as to the conjunction by which it is joined to it, and so it is necessary for it to exist, but it is not necessary for itself to be united. But this answer does not escape the aforesaid inconvenience, because if that being can be understood without that essence, it will follow that that essence has an accidental relation to that being. But that which is necessary in itself is that it is. Therefore that essence has an accidental relation to that which is by itself necessary. Therefore there is no quid pro quo of it. Now that which is necessary in itself is God. Therefore it is not the essence of God, but some essence posterior to God. But if that being cannot be understood without that essence, then that being absolutely depends on that on which its union with that essence depends. And so it returns the same as before, again. Each thing is by its own being. Therefore what is not its own being is not necessary being in itself, but God is by himself a necessary being. Therefore God is his being. Further, if the being of God is not its own essence, but cannot be a part of it, since the divine essence is simple, as has been shown, it must be that this kind of being must be something apart from its essence. Now everything that belongs to something that is not of its essence belongs to it by some cause. For those things which are not in themselves one, if they are united, must be united by some cause. Therefore, it is fitting that he is quiddity for some reason, either by something that is of the essence of that thing, or by the essence itself, or by something else. If in the first way essence is according to that being, it follows that something is for itself the cause of being. This, however, is impossible, because according to the understanding it is earlier to be the cause than the effect. If then something were itself the cause of being, it would be understood to be before it had existence, which is impossible. Unless it is understood that something is the cause of its being according to accidental being, which is according to what it is. For this is not impossible. For some accidental being is found to be caused by the principles of its subject, before which the substantial being of the subject is meant to be. But now we do not speak of an accidental being, but of a substantial one. But if it suits him for some other reason, but everything that acquires its existence from another cause is caused, and is not the first cause. But God is the first cause, not having a cause, as was shown above. Therefore that quiddity which acquires its existence from elsewhere is not the quiddity of God. It is necessary, therefore, that God's being is its own existence. For some accidental being is found to be caused from the principles of its subject, before which is understood to be the substantial being of the subject. But now we do not speak of an accidental being, but of a substantial one. But if it suits him for some other reason, but everything that acquires its existence from another cause is caused, and is not the first cause. But God is the first cause, not having a cause, as was shown above. Therefore that quiddity which acquires its existence from elsewhere is not the quiddity of God. It is necessary, therefore, that God's being is its own existence. For some accidental being is found to be caused from the principles of its subject, before which is understood to be the substantial being of the subject. But now we do not speak of an accidental being, but of a substantial one. But if it suits him for some other reason, but everything that acquires its existence from another cause is caused, and is not the first cause. But God is the first cause, not having a cause, as was shown above. Therefore that quiddity which acquires its existence from elsewhere is not the quiddity of God. It is necessary, therefore, that God's being is its own existence. As has been shown above, therefore that quiddity which acquires its existence from elsewhere is not the quiddity of God. It is necessary, therefore, that God's being is its own existence. As has been shown above, therefore that quiddity which acquires its existence from elsewhere is not the quiddity of God. It is necessary, therefore, that God's being is its own existence. Further, being names a certain act. For something is said to be not from that which is in potential, but from that which is in act. But everything to which an act belongs, some other existing from it, is related to it as a power to the act. For act and power are said to be related to each other. If then the divine essence is something other than its being, it follows that essence and being have one another as power and act. Now it has been shown that in God there is nothing of power, but that he is a pure act. Therefore God's essence is not something other than his being. Again, everything that cannot exist except by the concurrence of several is a compound. But no thing in which there is one essence and another being can exist except by the concurrence of several things, that is, essence and being. Therefore everything in which essence is one thing and being another thing is compound. But God is not composed, as has been shown. Therefore God's very being is his essence. Further, everything is by this that it has to be. No thing, therefore, whose essence is not its own being, exists through its own essence, but by the participation of something, that is, its own being. But that which is by the participation of something cannot be the first being, because that which something participates in that it is prior to it. But God is the first being, before whom there is nothing. Therefore God's essence is his being. And Moses was taught this sublime truth by the Lord, who, when he sought from the Lord, Exodus 3, saying, "If the children of Israel said to me, 'What is his name?' what shall I say to them?" The Lord answered, "I am who I am. Thus you shall say to the children of Israel, 'He who is has sent me to you,' showing that his proper name is who is. Now every name is instituted to signify the nature or essence of something. Hence it remains that the divine being itself is its own essence or nature. Catholic teachers have also professed this truth. For Hilary, in his book De Trinitate, says, "Being is not an accident to God, but a subsisting truth, and an abiding cause, and a property of the natural kind." Boethius also says, in the book De Trinitate, that the divine substance is being itself, and from it is being.